Rick Tocchet and the Vancouver Canucks seem to be shuffling the deck once again in a move that could see newly acquired Vincent Desharnais on the top defensive line with Quinn Hughes. And speaking of Hughes, the superstar added another record to the books, continuing to showcase his playing dominance and stellar career growth. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Desharnais defensive swap. Now, recently, Thomas Drance did publish an article in The Athletic that HockeyRumours.com took a bit of quotes from and made a condensed version of it, and one of those was showcasing how Vincent Desharnais could be moving up to the top defensive line, replacing Filip Hronek and sending him down to a line of his own. And in the article, it says here, doing so would allow Filip Hronek, who spent all of last season stapled to Quinn Hughes and is fresh off signing an 8-year, $58 million deal, to drive his own pairing against easier competition. That's something head coach Rick Tocchet said he'd consider doing, telling Drance that Hronek tend to defer too much, and at times when playing with Hughes that he'd like to see him be more forceful with his decisions. Now, I don't think this is Tocchet saying anything bad about Hronek. I think this is him just holding his guys accountable like he's done time in and time out with these Vancouver Canucks players. And when he seems to do that, they seem to step up to the plate and make an impact and make sure that they are not on the hot seat again and make sure they do their coach proud as well as the guys that they play for as well. So I think this is a move where he said in there, it says for easier competition. That's to say maybe for the games he does want to find a pairing for Hronek to have with another guy to jumpstart that a bit. But starting with Desharnais first, when you look at his stats, he's someone who only really started playing in the NHL full-time last season. And when you look at his stats from last season, 78 games, 1 goal, 10 assists for 11 points, not very flashy. The giveaways and the takeaways, they are what they are, the +3 rating, but the time on ice was only 1544. And when looking at Hronek, 23, Hughes 24. So when looking at those guys, it is hard to see how he could replace a guy like Hronek on there. But the two things that do pop out when putting him on that top pairing with Hughes is that they are an offensively heavy pairing with Hughes and Hronek, and that 6'7" height and blocking 122 shots as well is something I think the Vancouver Canucks do want to look at and have on that defensive pairing, where against these teams where they don't want to get scored on as easily or they don't have to score as quickly against these teams, they want to have a more even-keeled or more balanced defensive pairing where you're not just having your offensive defenders up front and having your big guys on the back end to make sure that goals don't happen and only have that top defensive pairing scored. So if Quinn Hughes could jumpstart Desharnais to have a much better season than he had last year in Edmonton, that is great. But what I worry about also is how it could affect Quinn Hughes when not having his co-pilot on that line with him. You see with their efficiency last year, Hronek and Hughes were arguably the top 2 defensive players in the NHL last year. Hughes had 92 points with breaking records like we'll get to in a second and winning the Norris Trophy, and Hronek as well. He was contributing as well. He had 48 points. He was plus 33, 23 minutes on the ice per game, had 104 hits. He blocked 87 shots. So yeah, he didn't block as many shots as Desharnais did, nor did Hughes. So that is reasonable to see them want to have that balance on those lines. But again, I don't think that you can really take away the production that those guys had and just expect it to be just fine and dandy. I don't think it would be the wisest of moves. Maybe it is more of a high risk, high reward move. But I think with Vancouver going into the season, they'll probably play it safe and not make those adjustments as early. I think when we get towards the middle of the season where they want to see if they can jumpstart a few players, that's when we could see a move like that happen. And if they do make a move like that, when you look at their defensive pairings, if you do move Desharnais up in that top line, you move Hronek down to the line with Forbort or with Carson Soucy, maybe you do go out and you get a guy like Olli Maatta who has played with Hronek before. So if you're going to put Hronek on his own line, maybe heading into the postseason or hopefully just reuniting with him with Hughes then, but in the regular season, if you have him on his own line, maybe you go out and get a guy like Olli Maatta who can help be a better chemistry guy with him. They played with each other before in Detroit, so that would be nice to have him make that adjustment with that rather than just going with a completely new line mate in Carson Soucy or Derek Forbort. Not to say that he wouldn't play well with those guys. I think this team is a very much glued together team that has the pieces that they need for success right now, and maybe they don't need any extra pieces. But again, I think having him on with a guy like Soucy, who is a bit taller and more physical, that might be good to go with his offensiveness. But when you have Hughes with Desharnais, it is concerning when looking at the lack of production that Desharnais has. It's not to say that he's not a big guy and isn't going to block shots. We'd love to see that. But will he be able to create opportunities and help Quinn Hughes elevate his game even further? That is the big question. But speaking of Quinn Hughes, he was at it again. He did break another record, and he was the 10th different defenseman in NHL history with 92 points during a season, and the third active blue liner following Erik Karlsson in 22-23 and Roman Josi in 21-22. So again, Quinn Hughes is at it again. He's breaking more records. He's heading into next season, going into another potential Norris winning season. And when you look at his career stats, he has just continued to grow and grow and grow. The only part where he stepped back is that season where he had only 56 games played, 3 goals, 38 assists, and 41 points. But other than that, he's continued to grow ever since he got in the league. He made that tiny splash with Vancouver after getting drafted with those 5 games, then immediately jumped up to 68. When you have a guy, when you drafted him that high overall with number 7, you do want to see him pay off, and he was an investment that paid off immensely. Within those 68 games, he put up 53 points, 45 assists, 8 goals, minus 10 rating, which again was on a struggling Canucks team. Then you look into the season after the season where he only played 56 games. In 76 games, he had 8 goals, 60 assists for 68 points, having a plus 10 rating. So he really flipped that around this time around. And then in 78 games in the following season, 7 goals, 69 assists, 76 points, and having a plus 15 rating. And then he made that massive jump this past season, playing all 82 games, 17 goals, 75 assists, 92 points, and a plus 38 rating. He was lighting it up and was definitely the best defenseman in hockey. And looking more at his stats from last year as well, he had the 24-41 time on ice average, which was insane. In the playoffs, he didn't even seem like he came off the ice at all. He was posting major time on ice there, and I don't doubt that that's going to be in tall order for next season as well. He's going to be playing on the ice a lot, especially if he's going to be paired with Desharnais. He's going to have to boost him up a lot more, and he had 29 hits. I don't doubt that he's going to try and get a little bit more physical than that without taking any penalties. He did block 55 shots. There was some critical block shots that he had amongst those 55, which doesn't seem like a lot. When you take into account the shots that he was blocking, they were big ones. So I don't doubt that Quinn Hughes is going to try and build on last season. I think he's going to break 100 points finally and have that triple-digit point total. And I think he's not going to be the only Canuck to do it. I think there's going to be a few Canucks that do get into triple-digit points, JT Miller being one of them, Elias Pettersson having a bounce-back year. Jake DeBrusk might not get there yet, but I think Jake DeBrusk is in a position where he is eventually going to be one of those 100-point scorers on a great Vancouver Canucks team that is built to last for a long, long time. So definitely love to hear what you guys think as well on Hughes getting that. And what do you guys think on Desharnais being potentially on that top line with Hughes? Do you think that would be a detriment to Hughes, or do you think he would more bring Desharnais up rather than him bringing him down? As well as Hronek, what do you guys think about the possibility of Filip Hronek moving down to his own line? And if he moves down to his own line, do you want to see them continue to have him with Soucy or Forbort, or bring in another guy to play on there, maybe Olli Määttä, or maybe another one of these trades that we could see come the deadline? It is a long ways away. That is way too early to predict that, but it would be interesting to see what you guys have to say about Filip Hronek, what he would be on his own line, if he would be as successful without Quinn Hughes, and likewise Quinn Hughes without Hronek. I think these are guys that, like Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland, you do want to keep them together. You do want to keep them on the ice together because they are one of the best lines in hockey when they are on the ice, or the best pairs, I should say, when they are on the ice. So if Vancouver can have two of those duos, those dynamic duos on their team, as well as the forward duos that they have with, hopefully with DeBrusk and Pettersson and others, I think there's going to be a team where there are going to be teams within a team where you have these pairings that when they're on the ice, they're making things happen. They're making problems for other teams. And I think Hughes and Hronek, Garland and Joshua are definitely two of those pairs, and would love to see if Vancouver can sprout even more of those pairs throughout the next season. Love to hear what you guys think as well. But with that, it's going to bring us to everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And we see here from Hanging in Paradise, good job, boys. Cheers from Belize. We love to hear all the feedback from you guys and hear where you guys are watching from. We've seen viewers from Sweden, Latvia, obviously Canada, Belize now as well. We've had some Australian viewers as well. So we'd love to hear where you guys are watching from in the comments below, as this channel has grown more and more over the past few months. That list of where people have been watching from might have grown even more significantly. So we'd love to hear where you guys are watching from, and we always love and appreciate the support. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.